But not just tracking it in an app just so you know like when your period is, like getting to know like your body and how you feel through the different phases. Like all it takes is 1 month to connect in with how you're feeling, and just even like writing down your symptoms and your mood that day and connecting in with what that looks like throughout your cycle.
You have a beautiful way of diarising that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So what I call is I chart my cycle, and I am in the process of getting this on my website sometime soon. But
walk us through it, baby.
It's you're making a giant pizza of your cycle.
Okay, tell me more.
So I draw in my journal, I draw a circle over 2 pages. So like an open page would have the circle over the whole thing. And then I draw little lines to divide my big circle up into 30 little slices of pizza. Hopefully that makes sense to people. That's the only template that I use. And then for my first day of my cycle, I'll write the date, and I'll write day 1, and I'll do a slice of the pizza for every day of my cycle. And in that I have a few different aspects. So I have a part that I cut, and I'm very visual, so I do write my symptoms down, but for the most part I draw like colorfully, like how I felt that day. So I have a spot where I color in what my womb felt like did it feel warm, did it feel cold, did it feel inflamed, and I have different pinks and reds and purples that I correspond with that. I write down if I do a love heart if I was feeling like self-pleasure was a key that day. I do a colored in love heart if sex was a key that day. I do flowers if I was feeling really sensual, or I'd even write like an X if I just was like, no, not in that like sensuality, sexuality thing at all. Like trust, like connecting in with how I feel. So I'm starting from the inward going out here. And then I track my dreams. So I write down the title of my dream that day. And then I have at the top of the wedge, I would write any symptoms that had come up. So if I was tired, or if I had any pain, or if I had like a pimple or a headache or whatever it is, I would write those down in notes. And then I draw a line in the color of what I was feeling to my mood. So like if I had like an elevated mood, I would draw a line that kind of sweeps up, and I'd do a color that corresponds to how I feel. I mean, and that's your own kind of thing, however you feel. And then the only other difference is if I was bleeding or having discharge any of the days, I would also draw a color in what that looked like over at the very top where I've put the number of my cycle. And then within this chart, I can write where the full moon is, where the new moon is, where the half moon is. I even like around the outside might write like if I had something major happen in my life, or there was something major happening in the media or society or whatever like that, and noticing like how that affects my mood and how that affects the next parts of my cycle, because we are impacted by our environment a lot more than we realize. So yeah, does that make sense? It's very hard to describe something that's a very visual aspect, but I can send you a picture of one if you like. That
makes sense. So it's you've drawn a circle, you've divided it into 30 days, and then on the like each section of the circle is a day.
Yeah.
And then you fill in certain parts of that circle. Yeah.
The most important thing I would say is like your mood, symptoms, and what your bleed look like, and or ovulation or discharge look like if you're getting discharge in your underwear, like even drawing what that look like, because that corresponds to different things going on. And then I always write if I felt more sensual or sexual as well, because I think that's important to notice and start to see patterns. Because if then the whole month you've got just X's, like, okay, what's going on here? Like, is there something I need to look at? For the whole month you've got love hearts. Oh, wow, that's pretty exciting, isn't it? So, and there's different days that you feel more attuned with that and without it. And the more that you start to visually like write that down, if you're in a partnership with someone else, it can make it a lot clearer for them to be able to see what's happening. Like I write it in my journal, but I know of women that do a similar thing and they hang it in a calendar and they hang it on their wall so their kids and their partner can see it. Like there's no need to hide.
Is this based on the day before, the day prior? So you do it in the morning?
I do it in the
based on how you felt
morning from the
before?
day before. Yeah. Or you could do it in the evening for that day.
Yeah. That makes sense. I love that. There's just this beautiful connection with self that comes out of that, tracking something like that. And I've seen like the end result of like a month, and it's this beautiful, colorful thing. And it's data in a way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not data that some app's going to track.
No. I mean, a lot of these apps have some amazing ways that they can do things now, but I don't know, there's just something so connected about like writing it for yourself. But if that's not for you, then there's some amazing period apps out there where you can track and put a lot of this data in anyway. But at the end of the month, you don't usually have this visual that you can look at. And if someone does have an app that they can tell me that gives all of that, send it to me, because I'll be giving it to my clients as well. But yeah.
It's also a beautiful way to remain present in your body too, because you're reviewing the previous day, which also helps with memory. But
and clarity.
Yeah, you're also staying very in tune with your body.
Yeah.
Instead of letting a week go by and be like, oh yeah, I think there was one day where I felt pretty bad and my womb didn't feel great.
And it's always that, like, you know, there's been times where I've like fallen off the wheel and not done it for a few days, and then I have to go back, and it just is not as valuable, and then my cycle might change, and I'll be like, oh, the more connected we can stay with and present we can stay with ourselves. It's like you know how you were saying, like when you're in your masculine, it's more about holding space. For me, if you're doing that to be connected with my yin, it's like, how can you hold yourself in your masculine like each morning so that your yin has the ability to flourish and do what she needs to do within your own self?